Hey, Bob, we were just talking to your chair.
Oh yeah, what did it say?
It wasn't very communicative.
It squeaks a lot when I sit on it.
Well, there you go. So let's get rolling here. See if I can get all of my tech stuff to work appropriately for a change. Well, good. Hey, before you go, any questions on anything? I was going through our Facebook group to catch up on some of the conversations there and the questions there, and I wanted a few things I thought we probably should address. But anybody have anything immediately that you're working on that's a challenge or an opportunity?
Yes, sir. I have a question. This is Jim Higgins.
Go ahead, Jimmy.
On your bandit signs, should you put your phone number and your email for your website, or should you leave one off?
I would just put a phone number. You don't have much room to work with.
That's what we've been putting the email and the website on there, and I think people go to the website, but then they don't call. So I think if I just leave the website off and put only the number, that'd be better. So your suggestion, I'm going to take that.
Yeah, I mean, if you wanted to get fancy, you could say text to, for immediate information or something like that. The best stats I saw, actually, we had a member who was doing pretty well with billboards on the Long Island Expressway, which, I would never have expected billboards to do particularly well, but it's a comparable to bandit sign type things, right? And they were having as much as you want to complain about people texting and driving. Their response mechanism was a text to this number for a free something or other. And that was working pretty well. I think you always have to remember the context, right? If I'm running a radio spot, sending them to a website isn't very productive because they're going to be in the car. If they're on a bandit sign or a billboard or something like that, you've got to send them to whatever they have the immediate response mechanism. Just as if you're doing clicks online, you want to take them to an intermediate step like a landing page before you move from there. If that all makes sense, Jimmy.
Yes, sir. That makes sense to me.
Yeah. Good. That was an easy question. Any others real quickly? Gonna have to be quick, but any others to start the meeting here? Master Smith, we see your name, we don't see your face, and I see Master Moody's picture. There he is. Well, welcome everyone. Wanted to make sure we stay on our schedule here, but I want to make sure also that we don't skip by anything that's a pressing issue for anyone.
Sorry about that, sir. My internet went a little fuzzy for a second.
That happens. There's sometimes each of our minds go a little fuzzy, and sometimes the internet goes fuzzy.
I'll blame it on the internet mostly.
Yeah. Mine is strange. Is I've got a direct hardwired connection into a Mac Pro, and every now and then, for some reason, it slows down like it's an old AOL dial-up connection. So, anybody who's gets irritated on today's internet never spent much time, on CompuServe trying to surf the internet on a POTS line, which stands for plain old telephone. Plain old telephone system?
Well, we've had enough experience of that kind of things. That's why we're the most geeky guys in the industry. That's why we're the most sensitive about people asking us for technical solutions for solving their problems, and why I have paper at my events and not an iPad. Why I have paper for a lot of my processes and not like the computer to solve them. And even though I use computers for lots and lots of things, and I do it really, really well, I use if I can make it so that if the power's out, everything's still going to work.
Yeah, that's exactly right. I was actually the president of my computer math club in high school, programming on a Trash 80. That was a Tandy TRS 80 with a cassette tape drive as the only storage mechanism. And Master, between you and me, we spent hundreds of thousands of dollars and thousands of hours creating tremendously quality programs that we learned not to give a shit about.
Right.
So,
Right.
if that makes sense. But anyway, no pressing questions before we plug along here. No,
I have one, sir.
go ahead.
What's a good? You talked about talking to people on the way into the Italian restaurant down a few doors down. What's a good speech to use to start that conversation?
Master Moody, give them the VIP pass script.
Well, are we talking to the restaurant about doing a cooperative business relationship with them, or we're going to the restaurant and just getting people?
Tapping people on the shoulder on the way out and having the conversation with them.
Well, what we do with people is we don't quite use the Grandmaster Clark script where it's quite as assertive as what he's doing. What we'll do is we'll already have some sort of event or thing or something that we're some reason that we're talking to them. So we try to have something, some reason that we're talking to them, and we go up and talk to them about, hey, we've got an event, community event, or some kind of thing that we're talking to them about. So there's a reason we're approaching them. And then for anybody that's interested, we say, well, yeah, we'd like to schedule a time, something we're giving them free. So usually that ends up being an event with some sort of implied lessons. So like we just did one, and we went and talked to people, and we're handing out passes, and we're talking to, we did a bullying prevention event well, I guess it's still January, right? So in January, we did a bullying prevention event. So we've got that one that we're going around to talk to people about. And if we're talking to people live at the grocery store across the street from the school, they'll have these flyers with them, and they're handing out flyers, or they're putting flyers at Safeway, and they'll be talking to people. And I'm not having my guys go up in a restaurant and like pestering people at the restaurant, but very often they're out doing these things and putting flyers out at businesses. And a lot of people, and they're wearing their karate stuff. So they're either wearing a shirt that has karate built on it, or they're wearing a t-shirt that has big kicker kind of people on it, or they're wearing their uniform. And so they'll be trained always to do what we call personal prospecting script. We don't call it the VIP script because we want them to be thinking about prospecting. So they're in that mode of, somehow there's a conversation that gets started, and they'll say, oh yeah, come to our event, here you go, and you also can get 2 weeks free from us. So it ends up being the same as the movie and theater event script. So we use exactly the same script, so I don't have to train them in 2 different scripts. So it's exactly the same, because I don't have to.
Don't gloss over that. Every intro enrollment process is the same regardless of source.
Exactly the same. Yeah, and it's great that Master Oliver is copying that and not glossing over that, because I was going to reiterate it myself. It's the more it's the same, the less brain damage I have. It's not different scripts. So I've got some reason to go initiate a communication. For the spin wheel, it's the spin wheel. For the going and talking to people at the restaurant, I've got some reason to go talk to them. I'm out handing out flyers, or if I really wanted to be assertive, I would go approach people. And I approach people and say, hey, come to my event. Oh, by the way, you get 2 weeks of free, or whatever your offer is, assumptively like they want it in the wheel. And then we just start the same process. Oh, and I just need to get your information to send you the info. And then we just do the same exact thing as we do the event script, which we could go over now if you want, but we've gone over that kind of ad nauseum, I think. I kind of want to.
And maybe reiterate, Joseph, you were referring back to the story that I tell, not so much of that as an ideal marketing methodology, but as the typical human reaction of doing something that's highly successful and then never doing it again, just out of boredom or whatever. So you're talking about my story of our previous franchisees who we kicked out, who are running the Thornton School, who is now owned by Stephen and Amanda Christensen, who literally would sit in the school all day and do nothing. And they were getting browbeat so much by me that finally there was a little Italian restaurant 3 or 4 doors down. And they went out during lunch hour for only an hour and talked to everybody on the way out, said, hey, we run the martial arts school next door. We thought you might be interested in a couple free weeks of lessons. Does that sound interesting? Yes. Well, here's a pass and here's some information, and we could do tomorrow night, or we could do Wednesday, whatever's better for you. And that was about the depth of the script, right? And then they'd have them fill out a little bit of information and make an appointment for them, right? So just the normal same sheet you would use in a movie theater, as Master Moody just said. Now, my perspective on that approach, which, number one, it works. Bill Clark built like 28, 30 schools doing nothing but that, frankly, or mostly doing that. And my other approach is, or comment about that, is if you have a staff member that you are thinking about firing, just get them going down and doing VIP for 5 hours a day, and they'll quit. You don't have to fire them. So it's a difficult thing to replicate, number one. Number two is we give you so many different tools and so many different opportunities for marketing. It's the absolute lowest point of leverage of anything that you can do, right? So, but it works, right? So, and the rest of the story is they went out, and for 1 hour, 3 doors down or 4 doors down from the school, for an hour, they made like 35 appointments or something like that. I think they enrolled 10 of them. So it took exactly an hour of labor. Now, we know generally that instead of standing down in front of the Italian restaurant, you'd be better off with a booth in a movie theater when the Avengers comes out. Or you'd be better off with a booth in the local shopping mall at, on Black Friday or the holidays. Or you'd be better off with a local marathon where, like Colby, you get 180 leads, 150 appointments in 6 hours. So there's a lot of other places that, even using that basic strategy, you add the prize wheel, you add somebody in costume, you have a flood of people, and then you can do much bigger numbers. Does that make sense, Joseph?
Yes, sir.
Master Oliver, can I add something on to that? I was going to say, if you don't have any, we've said a lot, though, that we talk to some of you guys and you say, well, I'm just not sure what to do. If you're not sure what to do, go do that. I mean, it's fine. There's a couple tweaks to that we've seen people do, like the marketing survey one. It's a reason to approach. I mean, it's, hey, can I, ask you to fill the marketing survey out? And we can talk about that, but really it's not that hard. There's a reason to approach, and then do basically the event script. That's it. I mean, it's very simple. It's not rocket science. So if you don't know what to do, that actually works just fine. And Master Oliver's right, though. I don't make my staff do that. I train them to do that because I want them to be really good. If they're wearing karate shirts like nonstop. So somebody says, hey, do you do karate? They immediately, like by default, go into this thing.
Yeah, well, you see pretty successful companies. Nutrisystems used to be huge with this. Is everybody had the button of lose weight now, ask me how. And dental offices, they'll have the hygienist and all of the staff, in shirts and buttons and one thing or another. And when they walk into Starbucks, they can't help but have people talk to them. So the lament and the rant that we have behind the scenes about any and all school operators is, if you don't know what to do, just go do some damn thing, right? Is what'll happen is it's not that hard to go get 20 new students a month. If you took a right out the front door and started talking to human beings, or started knocking on doors, or stood in Starbucks and talked to everybody in line, you could get 5 appointments a day. Now, it's not a strategy we teach, because we know you could go to the movie theater, or we can do Facebook and Google, or you can get PR and publicity and be in the newspapers and TV. There's so many other things that you can do that have higher leverage that we rarely talk about this. And when I talk about it, it's just to use the exasperated example of staff and or franchisees who, hit something successful once and never do it again, or who will sit at their desk and stare at a computer screen for 6 hours rather than go talk to human beings who might be good prospective students. Does that make sense?
And Mr. Oliver, just a reminder, we got a lot of new members on here too. So I did repost that live movie script up there in the Facebook group. So anybody new that's not familiar with that process, you're welcome to go over there and check that out.
Yeah, and why don't you introduce anyone who's new for our meeting?
Yeah, I mean, I think we've introduced Jimmy, Joy, and Derek. I think Derek's on here too somewhere. And then we also have Tina and Dominic on there. Hello. Hey, guys. They're brand new. So they just walked through the member site. So on that Facebook group I mentioned, Tina and Dominic, I just reposted that script for you. So you can take a look at that. And then we also record these meetings. So they'll be up there in the Facebook group too.
And Joy and group are in my old stomping grounds of Alexandria, Virginia, not too far from Master Smith there. Tina and Dominic are from Sacramento, more or less, California area. So any of you who are in Minnesota or Chicago and freezing your butt off, Sacramento is not freezing your butt off. And in fact, in Denver, it's 55 and sunny today. So I'm always happy to be in warm climate at 8,000 foot elevation. Blaine, I'm assuming it's not quite as nice there in Canada.
Yeah, no, we got minus 35 Celsius is the real feel. So if you just put the minus 35 in the Google there, we'll figure that out.
Master Oliver, if I could interject one thing, I find that my staff doesn't do well with just walking and approaching people cold, walk right up. You want to take lessons or a questionnaire thing. So what I found that really gets them trained properly is I have them set up a booth in the center, preferably in front of one of the big shopping centers. Grocery stores are the #1 most traffic I find coming in and out. We get a charity like the Cancer Society. We do a fundraiser for them. They give us a letter of introduction. We set up our booth. We put a donation jar on our table. We set our spin wheel there. And then when people come out, we say, would you like to make a donation to the American Cancer Society and spin the wheel and win a prize? Well, I don't care if they put a quarter or a dime or $1 or $10, whatever they put, they get to spin the wheel. So nobody minds making a little donation because either the kid with them wants to spin the wheel or the parent themselves. Everybody likes to spin the wheel, spin a wheel, and win a prize. And it's an easy, fix for them to get them involved. So I find that it also helps the training of new staff because you don't have the flood of traffic like at a movie theater when the movie's getting ready to start and 100 or more people are coming through the door. You get a little swamped and don't know how to handle it. With the grocery store, there's a nice steady flow coming out, and it gives them a chance to practice the script and fill out this and make an appointment. So it's a good training ground, and you can go do it just about any time you want. Once you approach the American Cancer Society and you become a member for them to be able to do events, I've had them even help us. They would even set up a prize wheel for us and run it for us without even our staff there, because they found that it was getting them a lot of extra money and a lot of cancer awareness. So don't forget about that type of thing. And you don't have to pay $500 or $1,000 and go to a movie theater until you get it down. So you don't waste that opportunity. Get some practice. Sometimes when you have a big county fair or a big live event, you don't want to go there and have not practiced. If you don't go to a mall and do a food mart or something, then I tell everybody to make sure that your staff sets up the booth just like it's going to be at the movie theater or the county fair or whatever live event you're doing. And then do role playing, have some of the students play the parents walking by, others are spinning the wheel, you know, running the wheel, the others have the clipboards, and you have everything set up exactly like it's going to be at the event. Because don't go, and we tell them, you know, just go do an event and you'll get better. Well, I tell you, you'll get more bang for your buck if you practice ahead of time by role playing. Learn how to train your staff at the school. Learn how to go out into your local mall across the street or down the street, and little strip centers. I don't mean the big giant malls. I mean little strip centers that have a grocery store in there, and you'll get a lot of practice.
Well, some of you guys have an opportunity. I know Master Karpiak, he told me he could set a spin wheel up on, he's got a little movie theater in his center. Some of you guys have centers where you could set up the spin wheel. My particular strip center that I'm in, you know, has very few, it doesn't have a lot of businesses. The big center is across the street that we get business from, that we go to hand out stuff. But the strip center you're in or the mall you're in, often you could just set up a booth there for practice, for training, and you won't get the volume you do at your main events. But as Master Smith is saying, that would be where you could start doing some training, and then they could get a few. They won't get, you know, 50 appointments or 100 appointments, but they might get 5 in an afternoon while you're doing training. So that's fine. And they don't have to be perfect before they go out and do this. They're still going to do pretty good. I mean, I've had the 51 appointments we got in 3 hours the other day was a couple teenagers, but they were trained.
And you know, some people tell me, well, I don't know how to decorate my booth, and that's why we put so many pictures of how decorated booths look. There's some that are very extravagant, and there's others that are very minimal. It doesn't matter. You start with the minimum and you start building it. But just go to our Facebook page, type in at the top live events, and you'll see
don't go to the Facebook page, go to the secret members only group.
I like the Facebook page, Master Oliver, because
no, Master Smith, your terminology is wrong. The Facebook secret group is where all the discussion happens. The page is the business page that is open access for everybody. So go to the Facebook secret members only group.
Well, that's the one I was referring to, was our members group.
Thanks, Bob.
That's why I was just making note that it's not the page, because we have a page, but it's not a member.
You're right, sir. There have been some new members that were confused with
Can
the
you
other.
put that back up?
Yes, sir.
Was that Master Moody? Did you put that up?
Bob did.
Okay, Bob, put that up, and then go to the top of it. Can you scroll down a little bit so we can see the top?
Looking very sweet there, Master Smith, as Thor.
Yeah, thanks a lot.
Yeah.
Do you see the search bar?
Yeah, right there.
Put in there live events, Bob, just to show them. Can you type that in? And then scroll where they can see it. Click on that picture right there, Bob. And you see, now if you click on either one of those pictures, click on one, now you see how it enlarges it. And then you can also touch on it and expand it. If you want to read the writing, can you expand that for us?
That's about it, sir.
And no, it'll if you take your fingers on your screen, you got a touch screen, touch it, and then, oh, there you go.
He's on a Windows PC.
Okay.
Not a
touch screen. So you can read the writing on those when you're on your touch screen. You can open it, or if you're on your PC, you can expand it with your mouse. Expand it. You can read the writing, and you can find the same style as you, because some are MMA, some are BJJ, some are Kung Fu, some are Taekwondo, some are Shotokan, Krav, Muay Thai. We have all systems. So find the booth that kind of fits your format. And you see that spin wheel that they have. You can also put spin wheel in the search bar, and it'll bring up all the different ones. You can find where to order it on Amazon. any of these other kind of graphics, the blow up kicker. Those are the kind of things that you want to develop your staff and learn how to get everything decorated up. Have them practice decorating at the school. You know, those banners, the graphics and all that, we have that available. There's a really nice one there with a tent, another spin wheel there. You can read what prizes they're giving and gives you some ideas. So you don't even have to have the tent and get that elaborate. That's a great one from Lynn Broussard's school.
And that's a good idea. Practice setting up the booth. You should set that up at the school before you go. We do that, and then they role play with the booth there. That's a good idea. All that's really good.
I've seen them start with very basic, with just a table and a couple of banners, and then build from there. And that's the key. But don't forget how much information is in this member secret group Facebook.
There you go.
Information. And if you go to it and learn how to use it, it is like your library of information, because it will have questions that people posted, and then answers from either Master Oliver, myself, or Master Moody, or Bob Dunn, and other members that were beginners at one time and needed to know something. And so it's your whole go-to how to do everything you need extra help on when we're not on a live meeting.
Well, and
24/7.
But before you skip beyond that, and we were on that topic, Bob, if you could go back and show Stephen Phillips' booth again there. Now, and Stephen's our favorite bodybuilder kickboxer there. You can tell he's looking a little beefy. Matt Smith, I accused him of looking a little scrawny when he was out here, and I think he went back and hit the gym and did another 10 hours of curls. I'm not sure if he's looking for
My man.
Yeah. Maybe looking for the senior bodybuilding tour along with a kickboxing comeback. Although I noticed that Wally Slokey wants a rematch with you.
Yeah.
But he would have to have 3 fights to end up.
He's 175 pounds now.
No, he said 157.
Oh God. I've only got 80 pounds on him then.
Exactly. It'll be like the Kareem Allah fight in reverse. But if you look at this booth, and we could critique it all day long, because I don't ever want to use your logo or whatever as the headline. But here are the key components and how much it costs. You know, the prize wheel's going to be maybe $300. Those
lights on it and everything.
Yeah, you spin it, and it has LED lights, and you can print the prizes out. So they're what, $400 max. The blow up kicker guys are what, $350, $500 nowadays. We've got the supplier for that or one. The little stand up banners you can get for anywhere from $100 to $200.
And they come with the stand. When you get them printed, they have a stand that comes with them.
Yeah,
case, they're really nice.
Yes, the whole deal is less than $200. And then the backdrop was probably the most expensive piece of the whole thing, but you could probably get that for $500 nowadays. I spent $10,000 on one, 12, 15 years ago, and nowadays with digital printing you can get it for probably $500. But if you look at that whole setup, he's got less than $1,500 into the whole thing. And to give you an idea, it of course depends upon the volume of where you're going to be. But the best I have yet seen from a standpoint of time effectiveness and where the results were so good we were pissed off at him, was Colby Winkler in Mankato, Minnesota, where it's probably minus 50 today. But he went to a marathon, was only there for 6 hours, generated 180 leads, meaning name, address, and phone number and email address. Of those, 150 plus a couple, so let's say 153 to be approximate, right, made appointments on the spot. And our ratio is usually at least 75 or 80% of the people you talk to, sometimes 90% plus, will make appointments on the spot if you just follow the script and ask them appropriately and overcome the I got to check on my calendar objection, right? And so of those 150, let's say 3 appointments, he had right at 100 intros, and he enrolled 54 people. Now that was October, and then in December he did 200,000 cash from renewing the people that he had done from the marathon. He was only at the marathon for 6 hours. Now, that many appointments in 6 hours is an outlier, meaning I rarely see, number one, that many appointments made over that shorter period of time. However, if you were at an AMC 24-plex when Avengers came out, or when Captain Marvel came out, you might well, over Friday, Saturday, Sunday, have 100 or 120 or 150 appointments. Master Smith, back when Master Smith, I was working with you on this years ago when Karate Kid came out, the one with Jaden.
Will Smith's kid.
Yeah, Jaden Smith is and Jackie Chan. You went out to practice with the staff the weekend before. That happened to be when Shrek came out, and made more appointments the Shrek weekend than any others, if I remember correctly.
Our practice weekend, we did 150 appointments that weekend.
Yeah. So and the ratios will tend to be 150 appointments. You're going to get half or more to show up, and of the ones that show up, you're going to get half or more to enroll. Right. So Colby's numbers, I remember, which was 180 leads, let's say 153 appointments, right at 100 intros, 54 enrollments. See, those ratios are pretty much in line. Sometimes we'll see a higher percentage that enroll. Usually we see 50% up to maybe 70% if you're doing everything right. That'll show from the appointments. And if you get less than 75 or 80% of the people who you talk to making an appointment, you're not following the script very well. Does that make sense? And where this works is it works at the local Taste Of event in your area. It also works at movie theater, assuming it's a big theater with a blockbuster coming out. It also works at a marathon, 5K run for cancer research, 5K run for breast cancer, whatever it might be. It also works home and garden show. Our location, Fresno, was literally doing so much intro traffic, but a lot of them were broke, that they shifted it to the home and garden show, the places where the family was going to look for a Sub-Zero refrigerator, granite counters, and a Wolf range. So now the income levels started self-selecting themselves out. They did this at places like that. They started adding a face painter also. So all the families that came by, the kid come over, get their face painted, and they would do all this stuff. And they were making 100 appointments in a weekend or better. So it works in that kind of environment. So any type of live event that you can find that likely has, you don't know until you know, but likely has your ideal prospect, occasionally hit something where nobody but broke people goes because it's a free activity for the weekend. You'll learn your lesson. We've had people go and it's the Irish Festival where everybody's already had 3 beers and are halfway in the tank. That's not very helpful. But any place where you're going to have a big traffic of people who live in your area who are a good fit, and sometimes you hit the wrong place and crap out.
Can I add one more, Master Oliver? We just got one. We just got one today that was really good. Or Master Sanborn had a meeting with a mall, and it's a big, huge outdoor mall, big, huge destination outdoor mall in Cave Creek, and it's where we have the movie theater that we've been doing, which hasn't been as productive for us. This movie theater doesn't usually, it's a big AMC movie theater, big luxury AMC movie theater, but the manager there has even told us they don't even sell out the big Star Wars movies. Really weird anomaly, but it's packed for Christmas. It's not a dead mall, but the movie theater has been an anomaly, but they're filled when they have events. So we worked out a deal with the mall. They have an event every single month. So the mall itself has an event. So look for the malls that you have, and they all have events and festivals, Easter events, Christmas events. They have art events where kids come and do art stuff. They have we're set for every single month the rest of the year where we're doing an event, and they already have their numbers set In fact, they loved us because we helped them with marketing. There were a whole bunch of marketing things that they did for the city that we do for the city that they didn't even know to do. So we cooperatively marketed with them. They do they do a summer camp outing where 2,500 families show up and in the area. So people are looking for summer camp stuff. So we're trying to figure out how to integrate, but basically we're just going to do the regular booth thing at each one of these events. So you can ask the mall that's around you what events they do. And believe it or not, they're super cooperative. Normally a kiosk in that mall is $5,000 for a weekend. We're getting in there for like $300-400.
Yeah. And Mass Moody, having done hundreds, if not thousands of those over the years. And of course, a lot of the big enclosed malls are dying off. So you've got to find someplace that's going to be busy. But we would always go to the mall, would have a marketing director. The big mall,
right,
this office there, you can just walk in and ask them if they have a calendar of events, what's going on. Ask for the marketing director who's in charge of those things. You can, in those environments, we have a lot of them that have like a big center court area. We did a lot of demos in the center court, and I will tell you what I wanted to have is a booth with the prize wheel where I could bring people over. If for some reason they wanted us to do a demo or there was other stuff like that going on, the only purpose of the demo was to drive people to the booth. And I always tried to morph it into a little bit of a demo and a little bit of a big first intro class in center court, where we might have people do a couple of things, and then we're going to teach a beginner lesson. Everybody come on out and, send people through the crowds to bring them down and do an intro lesson. But yeah, that is another good opportunity for some people.
Everybody should hear that, though, Master Oliver, about the demo. I just want to reiterate, people keep getting asked to do demos. We get asked to do demos, but they should do what you just said.
Oh, absolutely.
Which is don't do the demo. The demo, if I have to do a demo, I'm going to be doing a class and driving them to my booth.
That's right. That's right. We did a Scout Show Jamboree one time and did the booth, but took swing mats out and set up a classroom that was kind of like a double-size intro room. And at the Boy Scout Jamboree, there are lots of experiential things anyway. So we just drove them by, had the parents fill out the information, ran a series of ongoing, new ones were starting constantly. So we have 3 little classes where they were doing an intro class. And then while the kid's doing the little intro class, we're scheduling the parent for a follow-up time. So, Matt Smith, to finish up on the Facebook group here, the one caveat where this thing isn't great is the search function doesn't work for the files for whatever reason. And there's an enormous number of things that we put in here in the files that are useful. Bob, you're scrolling through the photos.
We do generally put, at least when I post stuff with have files, I usually put a descriptor in the posting. So if you're looking for movie promotion, it'll say in the post movie promotion. So when you search it, don't fret that you won't find it. But if you're trying to search for like MAW shoot yourself in the foot update, you won't find that. You'll find the text that goes along with that.
Yeah, and as a reminder for everybody, like today, probably later this evening or tomorrow, the replay of this meeting will be in the Facebook group. So I always put the video of the replay and of those Wednesday morning meetings we've been doing on internet marketing, which have 2 more left. All of the replays of those are going into here as well. And I think they've been very productive. Yesterday, Jeff Patterson joined us, and he's doing 35 enrollments from predominantly Google and Facebook. So we walked through SEO, pay-per-click, and so forth. We didn't go too deep on Facebook yesterday, but we went a lot of information on Facebook last week. Next week, we'll do more on, there's my Porsche 911 in the Blizzard. So to give you an idea.
Master Oliver, if I could also remind everybody, when you're doing like a mall, like a strip mall with the grocery store, and you're going to do a charity, Cancer Society or something, I always get a banner made up with the American Cancer Society on it, and then tie the two of our karate school supporting the community and what the fundraiser is. And then we'll have a couple of the displays on the booth itself, but don't get as elaborate as you saw at the movie theater for like the food mart. You want just your table, the spin wheel, and one freestanding banner, and you don't need a whole lot of other stuff. Keep it more bare. When you have
it doesn't have to be, but you don't have to be as elaborate.
Well, it gets a little, especially with the wind and stuff that whips around. I find that in sometimes at in the malls, but for your county fairs and your movie theaters and all those, you can get a little more elaborate.
Yeah, and just to finish on that topic, since we're beating it to death here, is the charitable fundraiser tie. There's all different ways to iterate that thing, right? And you mentioned the Cancer Society. I've always here in Denver done the local children's hospital. St. Jude's is a marvelous opportunity as well.
American diabetes and juvenile diabetes, because there's many of those.
If you're doing a national charity, just make sure they don't suck, and most of them do. So, and there's sites. What I always try to figure out is, if I'm in, say, the kids market, and I'm going to be working with elementary schools as an example, who do they respect the most, who has the best reputation with them? Generally, national charities, and I don't want to insult anyone, but most of them are the ones that the CEO's making $1.2 million a year, and they're flying Beyonce in on her G6 and paying her $250,000 for the charity fundraisers. And I try my best not to give them any money. So, do take a look at who you're supporting and working with. And especially if you can find one who's both good, like Salvation Army, for an example, find one who's both good and that will work with you even better. The charitable fundraiser, though, you can do a charitable fundraiser, for instance, $29 for 5 weeks and a free uniform like a Groupon offer. Now those flyers can be on top of Pizza Hut delivery boxes, Domino's, etc. You could do a fundraiser for Children Ronald McDonald House or McDonald's, which, by the way, is fabulous. You could then put the flyers in every bag that comes through the drive-through. You can print tray liners for the eat-in traffic at McDonald's. Used to be Burger King. They had a literacy program they supported. I'm not sure that's still true. But you can find whatever their pet charity is, do a fundraiser to raise money for that charity. With Children's Hospital, we always did it where we printed the Children's Hospital flyers and distributed them to every elementary school in our area. Now, Tina and Dominic, let me ask you a couple questions, if you don't mind. I'll put you on the spot on your first meeting here. Dominic, you were telling me, Bob, you can unmute them. Do you guys know how to unmute there? You're muted. There you go. You're unmuted.
Cool.
You guys were telling me you're doing a lot with the local elementary schools, right?
That is correct, sir.
Give everybody a description of what you've been doing so far with the local elementary schools.
Well, so I go into the PE classes and I teach a 45-minute anti-bullying program. Talk to them about different ways they can defend themselves at school, different power phrases, etc. And then we give them a real nice rack card, offer them 2 free weeks of training, gives them some of the information about our schools. And, we get into a lot of the schools. We hand out quite a few. I think the last 4 schools I was in, I handed out about 2,800 of these things. And the return on them is not very good. And I don't know if it's because I don't.
We can tell you why.
Everybody else is laughing because they know what you
Dominic, you do know why it's not working, because I told you on.
Yes. Well, but hold on. You told me to tell them what I'm doing, so then you.
Yeah.
I know. When you said I don't know why it's not working, I already told you why it's not working.
Well, he was trying to replay your conversation.
I told you that's exactly what I was trying to do.
but I was asking you that for a very specific reason.
Yes, sir.
You're in the Sacramento, California metro area?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Correct. Now, let me tell you a true story. Tim and Dave Kovar are, you know, might as well be lifelong friends of mine.
Yeah,
I've known them since the mid to late 80s. Tim and Dave Kovar, I can't tell you how many times they said these exact words. When I taught them how to do an after-school enrichment program, taught them how to do PE Teach for the Day. What they said to me repeatedly is, no, you don't understand California schools. You don't understand Sacramento. They won't let you do that here in California. It's just different here than it is in Colorado. I know you have carte blanche in Colorado, but you just don't understand Sacramento schools. Now, what they were trying to sell me on over and over and over and over, repetitiously, as I tried to browbeat them into getting out of their own way and getting the crap out of their head, which I never succeeded at, was that it was impossible to do what you've been doing and doing it in an impudent return, but in an effective way that you have direct access, right?
Yes, sir.
So one object lesson here is for everybody to anchor this in, is anytime you say to me or anybody else, you don't understand, that can't be done in my area, you're probably full of shit, right? And Master Moody has an equally effective example of Phoenix, where, you know, it was like the hardest place ever to do. For my own schools, I have one of the schools, when I parachuted in and did a turnaround, I did over 550 enrollments in 10 months, 78 in one month, 36 in one day. That's right smack in the middle of the district that every one of my own staff had said, you don't understand. They have a policy at district where you can't do that. It's against district policy to do that. We can't do that. So in the school where they were bound to convince me that you can't do that, I went in on my own after firing those idiots, one of which was my ex-wife's new husband.
I'm sorry.
Nietzsche said that which does not kill you makes you stronger, but he was Hitler's favorite philosopher and in the insane asylum at the time. But I did 550 enrollments where they convinced, they didn't convince me, but where they were convinced that it was against district policy to do it. The reason I wanted to use your example, and I didn't mention it to you before, is Tim and Dave were then and are convinced to this day that it is impossible to do what you're already doing.
Mm-hmm.
Well, sir, if I may interrupt you for a minute, sir. So I figured out, because I work with the police department, how to circumvent the actual unified school district and go directly in during the PE classes, because their policy is, unless you're a 501c3, you can't give the flyers to the district to hand out to the school. So I just figured I'd just go directly to the PE teachers, because I've been doing this here for a long time. However, what you said the other day made a lot of sense. I am not giving them a release to give the parents to do that like you were explaining to me. And I think if I did that, then more of them would get home. And I think a lot of them aren't getting home. A lot of the rack parts and stuff.
Yeah, plus you can market them.
Well, yeah, there's a couple of keys. One key is I like to do what you're already doing, but use that as a promo for an after-school enrichment program.
Yes, sir.
The numbers on that will be, pick a number. If the school has 500 kids, you should get about 400 permission slips, but about 100 to register for the after-school enrichment program. A third of the people who register for the after-school enrichment program will enroll. So therefore, you've got 30, 35 enrollments from a 3-week program right then and there. Plus, you also have presumably another 300 lead slips, probably half of which will have checked, yes, we'd like to know more information about the free introductory class and free uniform. So therefore, you've been given permission to contact them. So permission slips plus the PE class is one marvelous way. The ratios tend to be 70 to 80% of people will return the permission slip. Half or maybe a little more will check that they're interested. The ones that check they're interested have implicitly and explicitly given you permission to call them. The rest of them I won't call because that's where you get backlash. But I will direct mail to them. I'll put them on our email follow-up sequence. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
And then the next step is if you've got permission slips, you do the PE teacher for the day. And of course you can give them a flyer. A lot of those aren't going to get home and the parents aren't going to look in the backpack and, they get thrown away or whatever. However, if you do the after school enrichment program as well, now we get it where it goes home 3 or 4 times in the Friday folder or the Wednesday folder or whatever. Another thing to beat up on my friend Dave is the only thing I ever got them to do was we did we called it Walk for Children. This is back to the charity idea, and printed a 16-page newsprint flyer to promote it, and printed 100,000 at a time of these things, which I made the mistake of going to pick them up myself. And if you've never seen 100,000 16-page flyers, it literally filled a 20-foot truck on all loaded on pallets. But we were directly distributing those into every elementary school. Tim took that idea and they did a fundraiser for the local teen center there, which is the idea of we were doing the Children's Hospital fundraiser. And they did get the Sacramento schools to pass out those flyers directly. The 501c3 thing is an interesting one because one is when we do the after school enrichment program, we'll charge for it, but we'll give 100% of the money back to the elementary school.
Okay, sir.
So now it's done as a nonprofit. Years ago, having hit that barrier a time or two, is I set up a 501c3. It's still operating. We don't do much with it, but it's called KICS, Kids Involved Caring for Kids, a 501c3 that we would, and I did letterhead and everything for the nonprofit, and we would go in and do anti-bullying seminars and other positive programs through the school under the auspices of a 501c3. When we started charging for the program but giving the money back to the school, having the other layer of the extra 501c3 didn't make much difference, right?
Okay, sir.
But what you're doing is you're going already in through a 501c3 to get to the PE teacher. That's fabulous. Then the next level, once you have that relationship, which you already do, you can add on an enrichment program if you want. The other thing you can do is you can add on the flyers that get distributed. So if you think of any elementary school, what would happen if in the spring you did your normal program, but you got permission slips ahead of time?
Yes, sir.
Then when the grade reports came out, they stapled to the grade reports and mailed out to everybody the fundraiser flyer for whatever 501c3 locally is well respected. And then in the fall, you did the PE teacher to promote an after-school enrichment program. And then at Christmas, they distributed the fundraiser flyer for you again. See, you'd be dug so deeply into that elementary school. One, nobody would have any chance to get even a foot in sideways. Now, what you can add to that, this is digging deeper. What I always did was we subscribed to a little app called Sales Genie. What Sales Genie will do is I can go in and plot where the elementary school is. If I wanted to side by side, I can look at the map for that school. And so now I can pull a list of households with kids in that area, and I can do direct mail to households that are likely to, not guaranteed to, but likely to go to that elementary school.
Right.
Yes, sir.
What else can I do? I can go to all the pizza delivery places and have the charitable fundraiser flyers going out to every household in that area. What else could I do? Well, I can do the bandit sign. You can focus on the area. Obviously, Dominic's dog there, so
Yes.
we won't mute you. But I can do bandit signs up and around that area. So when I'm doing the PE teacher, they see the bandit signs, they get a piece of mail or a couple of mail in the mail. What else can I do? I could do rack cards out in that area and hit all the merchants that they're likely to go to. What else could I do? Well, I can get the school to do banners and stuff, probably up and around the school. But then what else could I do, right? I mean, you keep looking at how do I layer on and layer on and layer on and layer on. And if I have a community of, say, 400 families, I'd rather hit them 20 times than try to saturate bomb the entire area with something like Every Door Direct. Does that make sense? And then you dig really deep. Dominic, is that giving you some ideas?
Yes, sir. My question to you, sir, is because you talk about this form to take home, a permission slip, et cetera. Is that something that that you have available to us that's already pre-done? I see the smile. There it goes.
We got a few versions of that.
Go to the search bar and see your permission slip, and you'll find a bunch of them.
Oh, outstanding. Yeah.
Now, what do you do for your after-school enrichment program? What is the exact fundamentals of that? Or is that at your school, or is it at the elementary school?
Well, the short answer is it's done at the elementary school. But as soon as we get the registration slips, we'll try to get them down to the karate school. Usually with the auspices of it includes a uniform, but they have to come to the school, take a class to get the size for the uniform. And then we'll do a graduation at the end that's held at the karate school. And the ratios on that tend to be, well, I already told it, 15 to 25%, but let's say an average of 20% of the kids in the school register for the after school program. And of those, about a third of them enroll in our school, right?
And,
good.
And I was just going to add, Master Oliver, the 20% thing is if you do the marketing the way you're talking about. If you do what the school says, a lot of times the school will agree to do the after-school enrichment program, but then what they'll do is, oh, yeah, we'll put it in our newsletter that goes home one time along with their chess program or whatever other crap that they do, and that's horribly ineffective and inefficient. So what you're doing, guys, is what you guys are doing is great, and then you do a whole bunch of stuff to get your 20%. So getting that 20% is critical. That's job one. And what Master Oliver's talking about, I just want to back that up, Master Oliver, because it's just so important that you gotta pound them ahead of time with lots of stuff, and then you'll have a really successful event. It's so much easier to do that. If you let the school go to what they're used to, one time at the beginning of the school year, they hand out one flyer. Here's the 12 activities we do, and every one of those activities has 4 kids in it.
Right.
Absolutely.
That's what they're used to, though. So you've got to get that out of your mindset that what they are used to is not what you suggest, and then get used to saying, well, that's okay and that's great, but we really want to raise the most money for you. And what we found works better is, and then suggest the way that you're going to do it. And most of the time they'll go, really, you do that for us?
Absolutely.
So
Yeah.
go. I'm sorry to interrupt you, sir.
No, that's fine. There's a ton of information, again, in the Facebook group about what that program is, including a promotional flyer and so forth. There's also, you're welcome to take a look at milehighkarate.com, and there's 2 links on there. One says educator resource, and one says after school programs, and it has a bunch of that information as well. The other question I had, and putting our newbies on the spot here, Tina, you said something to me yesterday about the way you've been doing the introductory process because you were working with somebody who had you doing it in a certain way with bad results. Okay, can you explain that to me? Because I just kind of picked up on it and didn't address.
Probably 10 years ago, we did the intro process, and then we started working with Felicio, and God love him. So we were just bringing people in and doing the 2-week, and the sign-up percentage is about 70%, which is not where I want to be. I want to be a much higher ratio. But we're not getting the long-term contracts, which is what we need to do. We've been doing the month-to-month, and you can have a fallout rate that's too extreme, and we're seeing that right now. But I want to stop that, and I need to go back to an intro process. So we need to get back into an intro system where we can follow through in a systematic fashion, because we are not doing that currently.
Also, just my input, sir, if I may, before you make your comment, is, and the other thing her and I talked about after we got off the phone with you the other day is the other avenue is how do we take those students that we already have, and you know where I'm going with this, and get them upgraded into a longer term program so that we have that long-term residual income.
It's pretty straightforward. And it's kind of out of the scope of our conversation today because we'd have to spend more time than we have on it. But we'll get you there. The short answer is we have the whole script for you're going to grandfather them in, but we're launching the next new program. And, you know, if they do it by a certain date, they're going to get a huge savings and get to move into that program. And typically we'll be able to bump their tuition by 50 to 100% with the premise that they're saving a tremendous amount of money by being a long-term loyal student and moving into that. What I will tell you, and this ties to what I want to make sure we hit before we're out of time, but the month-to-month thing, of course, is stupid, right? You know, I think I worked briefly with Brandon years ago, if I remember correctly, helping him. But every now and then I tune into one of his things, and every time I have to tune into one, he says something stupid enough that I'm like throwing things on my desk. One of them that I remember was he was talking about doing birthday parties, and they had this whole machine going, all these birthday parties going on. He's bragging about how much they're grossing on birthday parties. But then he says about converting them, well, what we do is we put a rack card in the bag, in the goodie bag, and if they're really interested, they'll call us. And I'm like screaming, going, what a fucking moron. Yeah.
It's not just a moron, sir. You're upset because everybody should be upset because it's negligent. But I'm sorry. It makes me very upset because it's negligent.
Yeah, pardon my language, but
it's appropriate though.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But on the month-to-month thing, the entire intro process, so that everybody remembers, is in the new member website, the Quick Start site, martialartswealthmember.com/Quick Start, and in that package that we sent you, which you haven't gotten yet, but that package we sent you, that Fill Your School program, we have a whole day where we went from first contact all the way through the enrollment process. Okay. The important thing about it's all important, but the important thing that ties to what that I wanted to make sure we get in today is the language that I like in the enrollment process, which is basically, and keep in mind we have Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu schools and MMA and Muay Thai, but my language for our students is, now Ms. Jones, Joey is 7 now. He could be a black belt when he's 10 or 11. It takes 3 to 4 years. He can be a second-degree black belt. What would that be? Probably when he's about 13. Takes another 2.5, 3 years from first degree to second degree. The kids who get to black belt at that age, many of them end up working their way through high school, even college, teaching karate like I did. I worked my way through Georgetown University teaching for that horrible taskmaster in the blue jacket there. Yeah. Well, I had class on Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and had to skip every Friday. And the worst he ever yelled at me is I had to miss the Friday meeting and take a physics test. And he was extremely upset that the professor wouldn't reschedule the final for my schedule. But so in the conversation, you know, obviously the goal is for Billy, Susie, to get to black belt and beyond. With all the kids we start, which is a trial enrollment, it's only about a quarter of the way to black belt to begin with. That's going to give us the first couple of months to evaluate and make sure we feel comfortable with committing to training Susie, Billy, to train to black belt and beyond. As we've talked about before, the tuition is going to be $297 a month. What we typically would do initially is it's $600 initially to get started. Since you came in from Leewood Elementary School or whatever it might be, we give you a $300 discount if you go ahead and finalize the enrollment today. So it's just going to be $300 and then $297 to get started. How did you want to pay that? And sometimes at that point they go, what do you mean? Well, Visa, MasterCard, check, firstborn, you know, whatever will work for you. And I shrug my shoulders and smirk. And that's the closing question, right? How did you want to pay for that? Now, notice the language that I use, though, which is why I want to talk about today, is the language is all about this is a program that takes you to black belt and beyond. And we want to evaluate and make sure we feel comfortable with our staff being committed to that. So we're going to enroll you on a trial enrollment until you've been approved to train to black belt and beyond, at which case we'll let you know and go from there, right? Now, I'm not saying it's a 12-month contract. I'm not saying we enroll everybody initially for 12 months. What I'm saying is this is a program that takes you to black belt and beyond. Just like I enroll in kindergarten, this is a school that'll get you to 5th grade, then you go into middle school, then you go to high school, and that's to prep you for college, right? This is a program that takes you to black belt, 2nd degree, 3rd degree, but we're going to start for a trial, make sure we feel comfortable. That combines takeaway selling, right? In other words, you need to prove it to us, not we're trying to sell you. That changes the language dramatically from feeling like it's a huge commitment to it's a small commitment. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Yes, sir.
Absolutely.
Okay, so
We have, Master Oliver, we have that scripted out, like the way that all that stuff's going. We've got that all scripted out too. So you don't have to memorize all the stuff he said, but everything he said, the principles are really critical.
yeah, and like I said, there's the full video, audio, and transcript of me doing a complete enrollment conference in that package you're going to get in the mail,
Right.
in the member site, and everybody should have both. But in the member site, martialartswealthmember.com/quick start. So you can get the whole process down. But the part that I really want to anchor in is most staff members especially will be so excited just to get the enrollment that they've missed the mission is to teach the student how to think properly about your program long term.
Right.
So what you're doing from first contact is teaching them how to think properly about your program, not just trying to get them to write you a check, right? The problem with Brandon's month-to-month deal, and he has all of this logical sounding rationalizations of we're not going to sue people and we hate contracts and so forth. But all of that logic doesn't hold up to the fact that if somebody drops out in 3 months, they're permanently going to suck in martial arts. The only way to get them good at martial arts is to be there 4, 5, 6 years. And it's a dual commitment. It's our commitment to them and it's their commitment to us, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it misses that point. The other thing that I see, again, trolling some of their discussion forums and so forth, is people end up having like a whole bunch of students who want to stop their payments over the summer, and now their billing drops over the summer. Well, that's, you know, dumbass just because they're doing it wrong. And
that hurts retention besides the payments, sir.
Yeah,
it's not just the payments. Yeah, it's like starting over again with all those students. But anyway, I sorry to interrupt.
Well, no, it's like Suhail Al-Ghasabi in Bahrain. Is they literally, when we started working with them, they closed the school in July and August because everybody goes on holiday, and then they would start up again. So every September they started with basically 0 students, and I had the long conversation with him. By the way, we got them to go from U.S. equivalent of like 9,000 a month to 100,000 a month. But I had the long conversation of, do you want students for 9 months and then you start from here, or do you want students for the black belt? But is this making sense, Tina?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So then when you look at the enrollment process, it's all about, all the focus is training to black belt and beyond, all the outcomes that go with that, developing a overwhelming proof of the value of what you're doing, then enrolling them on a trial lesson where we're going to take the first 60 to 90 days to prep them, have them set solid written goals, and then convert them to being committed to black belt and beyond, right?
Sure.
So that's the process. The thing not to miss is that really the only purpose of having a white belt is to get that white belt excited and convinced that they want to be a black belt, right?
Mm-hmm.
And if we could just enroll them to that to begin with, we probably would. We've done it in the past. There are folks that do a pretty good job conversion ratios doing it. We've just never figured out a way to leverage up the tuition rate. with it being 1 or 2 classes. We need to have a couple-month prep process.
Okay, perfect.
Yes, sir.
When people do that, when people do that, they pat themselves on the back that they're getting our basic tuition rates are lower.
Yeah, exactly. Anybody have any questions on that language and that mindset?
No, sir.
No. When you say the introductory, what is it you're doing now that isn't working that you want to change?
I just don't feel like I have a system in place from the minute that they walk in the door. We're relatively new back with AMS right now in setting up the enrollment conference. So sometimes if Dom's at the front desk, he may holler it out to me that it's on next Tuesday and I don't get it down. And so then I'm teaching a class instead of doing an enrollment. So I've got to get a better system on communication between the two of us to get to that enrollment conference so I don't lose them before they even come in for that next conference.
Okay, so walk us all through what you do with the average new person that comes in for a first class.
So right now they're just being put on the mat with a junior leader kind of going through. We come through, we do a tour of the school, talk with the parent, give them all the data on classes that are available to them. Then we put them straight out on the mat with a junior for the first 2 days, and then we give them a buddy for the balance of time up through their first belt to their second belt.
Okay, but at what point are you asking them to actually enroll?
Usually at the end of that second week. I think it should be at the end of the first week, but I don't know what everybody's take is.
You're right. Second.
Yeah. Master Smith was cringing as you said that. Little different. If I'm predominantly bringing in adults,
right.
MMA, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, a lot of the enrollments will be after the first lesson, sometimes after the second.
Okay.
Right? And there's schools that do pretty well with families doing that as well. I'm pretty adamant about I prefer second or third lesson because I want to get all the decision makers there. And we could have that argument. Master Moody tends to prefer a little earlier than I would. Bill Clark, Sergio Von Schmeling prefer a little earlier than I would. But what I like to have is first lesson, I'm prepping them and pre-framing them for the enrollment. And if you want to go, by the way, milehighkarate.com/first lesson and milehighkarate.com/second lesson there's the materials and so forth that we use during the introductory class to prep them for the enrollment, including a little sheet that we give them at the first lesson and walk them through to prep them for the enrollment at the second time, right?
I think that would be essential.
Yeah, so you take a look at that. A lot of that stuff is in the Facebook group. It's all included in those recordings, but it's also, you're welcome to go look at the one that we use for the Mile High Karate Schools.
Very good.
I'll post that in the Facebook group as well again.
Thank you.
But then what's happening is at the first lesson, we're prepping them to enroll at the second lesson. An important piece of that for kids is mom, dad, sometimes mom, stepdad, dad, stepmom, and grandmother, right? But any of the decision makers, anybody who's going to be in finances, scheduling, transportation, any of that, will need to be there for the child. So in other words, mom isn't bringing the kid for first lesson, second lesson. Dad hasn't been down, and I'm pitching mom, and she's taking it home to talk it over with dad.
Right.
So, and so then what we're going to be doing is sitting down and doing the enrollment at the second lesson, assuming we have all the decision makers there and assuming that they're ready to move forward. And that's part of that pre-qualification questionnaire that's in the posted there, right? But it's going to be, what 2 days a week are you going to be able to come, and have you memorized the student creed? And I won't go through the whole thing, but you get the idea.
Right.
The closing rate of 70% isn't a bad number. It's just that you're not really closing them on anything, right?
Exactly.
essentially they're coming in for 2 weeks, and you're saying, "Come in. Do you want to come in next month?"
Mhm.
You know,
The real closing rate. What's the closing rate on some enrollment afterwards?
Say again, I'm sorry.
What's the real closing rate on whatever the next thing is?
Exactly, because right now we're just doing month to month, so.
Oh, well then, yeah, right. What you said, Pastor Oliver.
You know what I'm saying?
Exactly.
Yeah.
a simple software app that I like, and it's very inexpensive. What is it, guys? $49 or something like that a month, is Schedule Once. And what I like about Schedule Once is that it is a little calendaring app that you can schedule your first intros, schedule your second intros, schedule renewal conferences, but it will remind them by text 4 times, remind them by email 4 times, and let them reschedule their own class to a different time that works better if they want. You've seen that because we use it, right?
Right.
Very inexpensive. You mentioned AMS. Toby, who's a good friend of mine, great guy, started out as an ATA school, started out as a member of this group, worked for me for what, Bob? 6-7 years?
Good time, long time.
Yeah, long time. Who now works for AMS, he's very software centric, and Master Moody and myself are probably the 2 biggest nerds in the industry, and I'll make number 3 be Toby. But you know, the software isn't the magic sauce on anything, right? There's small little snippets that are useful. Overall big packages that try to do all things to all people usually don't do any of the pieces very well.
Right.
And that's not a criticism, by the way, of Atlas software. I haven't looked at it. Toby and I talk about it a few times here and there, and all the ideas came from things that I taught Toby long in the past, and it probably is marvelous. But the thing I like about Schedule Once is it helps you fix what you just talked about, which is keeping track of when somebody's coming in for their first lesson, coming in for the second lesson. It helps to confirm them so that you and they are on the same page, and it helps keep people from falling through the cracks. And then it works with your iPhone, or it works with an Android phone, it works with Google Calendar or whatever you want to use. But it's one way to solve that they fell through the cracks problem.
Right.
The other piece of it is getting out of the idea that they're coming in for 2 weeks and making it really clear that you're doing internally first lesson, second lesson, enroll after the second lesson, unless there's some specific reason that I need to schedule a third time to get them to come in with decision makers, money, prep to enroll, whatever, right? And the open-ended thing is death, because people fall through the cracks. And you know, I can't tell you how many times I've had to beat that into my staff. When we do the after-school enrichment programs, they would bring them in once, and their excuse would be, well, there's still 3 weeks left in the after-school enrichment program. No, first time they walk into the school, it's the first lesson. Then you're going to schedule them for a second lesson. Then we're going to enroll them immediately following the second lesson, unless there's some reason not to at that point.
Sure.
That makes sense?
Yes, sir. And I do believe Mr. Dunn put the information on the Schedule Once in one of the initial emails I got. So I'm going to research on that.
Yeah, and by the way, for everybody, there was some discussion about various little software systems in the Facebook group.
Again?
Yeah, well, it was Jan, who's not here, who's a wonderful human being, who implemented Ring Central poorly. And then it was Ms. Chavez there complaining about her experiences with Ring Central.
I know Pat Live, sir. Dan was Pat Live.
Say it again?
Pat Live.
No, it wasn't Pat Live, because Jan mistook Ring Central for Pat Live.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. But here's the deal, is Schedule Once, for instance, is the easiest damn little piece of software to set up and use that I've ever seen. And we do have some people who can drown in a mud puddle, right? So I've seen, somebody told me recently, I hired a program director and they spent 3 months setting up Ring Central. Well, I mean, not Ring Central, Schedule Once. If you spend more than 45 minutes setting it up, you haven't paid attention. And by the way, we have the propeller head, and that's now today's reference. But we have the propeller head in the basement, which is Merrick Gahura. And if you get bogged down in something like that, Bob can help you up to 80%. And Merrick is the technical genius in the basement. And recently, we've had Merrick do several sessions of showing people how to set up Schedule Once. But with Ring Central is the mistake that Jan made was porting over her school number day one and not having it set up properly in the back, and then missing a day of phone calls coming in. Well, if you set up Ring Central, which I like, we use it for Mile High Karate, we use it for martial arts, wealth, etc. We never had any problems with it. But if you set up Schedule Once to begin with, set it up where they assign you a number, get everything set up, test it out, make sure it's working, make sure it's ringing through to your cell phone, that it's ringing through to the other phone, download the app to your phone, make sure it's working, make sure everything's working before you ever turn it live, where it's actually taking live inbound calls. It seems like a simple concept, but you want to go through and set it up. Again, it's like the simplest damn system to use, and I don't know how many millions of people use that one. But there are a lot of comparables. Again, I want to point out, we're not making any money on any of these things. I don't know the owners. We're not affiliated with them. All these software packages I'm telling you are just because we've used them and we like them, and we haven't had any problems with them, right? So it's not like I'm trying to pitch anything. There's, I think it's called Jackrabbit that I hear advertised on satellite radio. There's Google Voice, which is not very robust, so I wouldn't use it. I've used it. The only thing it has going for it is it's free, but it's not very robust. There's Line 2, which we use for the schools, and it works, and it's cheaper. It's called Talk to Me or Line 2, TOKUMI. And then there's Ring Central, which is a little bit more expensive and much more robust. And then there's other comparables. All that, for that discussion, the only reason I recommend one of those is instead of just having a landline at your school that then you forward somewhere when you're not there, you can pre-program it to try to ring multiple phones at once, to go to something like Pat Live as a live answering service overnight. You can program it to ring through the school landline in the evening, to ring through your cell phone, pre-program days and times. The other thing you can do is you can load the app on your phone, and you can make outbound text messages from the school main line rather than from your personal number. And you can do outbound calls from the school line, not your personal number. And so can your staff. So now all of your staff can have the same app on their phone, and they could be at home on a snow day making outbound calls, doing outbound text messages, and have it ringing the school phone number on the caller ID rather than their personal number. Right. Mm-hmm. So again, those are, there's one app I like is called Simple Tuition Management. Not trying to take anybody away from AMS or whoever, but it's a simple billing app. The other one that I like is Ring Central, but again, there's lots of comparables. The other one I like is Schedule Once, and again, there's lots of comparables. What I generally don't like is trying to take some all-encompassing package that was written for martial arts schools and expecting that it's going to do all the different things that you need, because usually it doesn't do many, if any of them, very well.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Anyway, we've got about a minute and a half left. Any last question before we go? But welcome, Tina and Dominic, and
Thank you.
Joy, and welcome to you guys as well. Again, coming from Alexandria, Virginia, and Sacramento, California. I thought you guys might enjoy my Kovar story about the school. But anyway, any other thoughts or questions?
Not at this time. We're just going to kind of look it over, sir, and kind of like you said the other day, start slow, not try to implement it all at one time.
Yeah, we'll give you a priority checklist to one thing at a time.
Yes, sir.
And Blaine, I hope nobody freezes to death in Niagara Falls this week. It's supposed to be gone by Friday, right? No? It's supposed to be like not colder there than Arctic Circle and Mars.
I was just in Virginia Beach, and it was like freezing like crazy there. So
Virginia Beach?
yeah, it was freezing there right by the water, but it's still freezing. We were doing the home invasion and active shooter and college bound readiness training, and it was like crazy cold. So that was
Master Smith just stupidly went to Atlantic City in January. How was Atlantic City, Master Smith?
It was warm inside where I was.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Well, it's 22 here today, and this is the warmest weather we've had in a few days.
it's
Well, that's
75 in Arizona, so I'm okay.
Well, it's about 64 here in California, so we're digging it too.
Yeah.
We got 55 and sunny. What I'll say about Atlantic City is nobody has yet offered me enough money to force me to vacation in Atlantic City.
Well, Steve said he has it the worst. Minneapolis is minus 57.
I think Blaine is probably a little worse than that.
No, minus 57 is worse than minus 22 in my directory.
Yeah, I imagine Niagara Falls is a little worse than Minneapolis, although none of them are good. Okay, no last questions. Post everything that you need in the Facebook group, and I'll remind you, 3 of the biggest blockbusters of the year are coming out in the next 3 months. So if you want to be in the movie theaters, I would do Battle Angel. You can't miss Captain Marvel, and you certainly can't miss Avengers. That's probably the #1 grossing movie of the year. And I had posted a couple of different things of what they expect the billion-dollar releases to be this year. Doesn't do any good to be out there in a small theater with no blockbusters, but a big theater with lots of blockbusters, it's a home run. Okay. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you,
Hey,
sir.
guys.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.